What if I told you that three of the world's most conflict-ridden nations are about to launch their own satellites into space? That Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, countries where getting clean water is a daily struggle, are now partnering with Russia to beam internet across vast deserts and monitor every inch of their borders from 36,000 kilometers above Earth. This isn't science fiction. This is the Alliance of Sahel States' boldest gamble yet. A $200 million bet that could either transform West Africa or become another cautionary tale of big dreams meeting harsh realities. To understand this satellite story, you need to rewind to 2020. That's when the dominoes started falling across the Sahel. First Mali in August 2020, then Burkina Faso in January 2022, and finally Niger in July 2023. 3 military coups in 3 years. But these weren't random opportunist power grabs. Each coup was fueled by the same frustrations. French military operations that seemed to make terrorism worse, not better. Economic policies that kept these resource-rich nations dependent on Paris, and a growing sense that sovereignty was just a word on paper. In September 2023, something unprecedented happened. The three military leaders didn't just form another diplomatic alliance. They created the Alliance of Sahel States, a fearless confederation. Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta, Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and Niger's General Abdourahmane Chiani weren't just talking about unity. They were building it. Let's talk numbers. Combined, the AES controls a territory larger than India, with a population of 75 million people. Mali alone sits on some of Africa's largest gold reserves. Niger produces 5% of the world's uranium. Burkina Faso has been one of Africa's fastest-growing gold producers. Yet their combined GDP is just $70 billion less than Luxembourg. Here's the kicker. Despite all this wealth beneath the ground, above ground, these nations were digital deserts. Internet penetration barely reached 25% in urban areas and was virtually non-existent in rural regions. When extremist groups cut fiber optic cables, which happened regularly, entire provinces would go dark for days. The AES leaders faced a choice. Keep relying on French satellites for border surveillance, European companies for internet infrastructure, and American intelligence for security data, or take a massive leap toward technological sovereignty. They chose the leap, and Russia was waiting to catch them. While Western media was focused on Ukraine, Russia was quietly executing one of its most successful soft power campaigns in decades. Not in Eastern Europe or Latin America, but in Africa. The numbers tell the story. Russian trade with Africa doubled between 2017 and 2023, reaching more than $20 billion annually. Russian military contractors gained footholds in at least 8 African nations. And critically, Russia's space technology exports to the continent increased by 400% over the same period. Enter Glaive Cosmos, the commercial arm of Roscosmos. With Western sanctions limiting their traditional markets, they needed new customers for their satellite technology. The Sahel presented a perfect opportunity. Nations with urgent needs, limited alternatives, and governments increasingly hostile to Western influence. The economics were compelling. While Western satellite services typically cost between $15 to $25 million per year for basic Earth observation capabilities, Russia was offering comprehensive packages, satellites, ground stations, training, and maintenance for significantly less. The AES deal, estimated at $200 million over 5 years, included not just hardware, but technology transfer that Western companies rarely offered. The deal was sealed on September 24, 2024 in Bamako, but this wasn't just about satellites. Russian officials also signed agreements for nuclear energy cooperation, mining partnerships, and military training. The satellite project became the crown jewel of a comprehensive strategic partnership. Russia's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. While China focused on infrastructure loans and the West preached good governance, Russia offered immediate solutions to immediate problems. Need to monitor your borders? Here's a surveillance satellite. Need secure military communications? Here's an encrypted network. Need to counter Western propaganda? Here's your own broadcast capability. The timing was perfect. Russian forces, initially with Wagner Group, and now under the banner of African corps, are already providing security services in the region, and French forces in full retreat. Russia could offer a comprehensive package: security on the ground and eyes in the sky. But Moscow's motivations go beyond mere profit. This satellite deal positions Russia as the technological patron of Africa's largest landlocked region, creating long-term dependencies that could last decades. Every time these satellites need maintenance, every software update, every data analysis training session, it all flows through Moscow. Let's get technical. The AES-Russia deal actually covers 3 distinct satellite systems, each serving different strategic purposes. The first is a high-throughput telecommunications satellite. Positioned in geostationary orbit at 36,000 kilometers above the equator, this bird will provide internet coverage across the entire Sahel region with download speeds up to 25 Mbps, not blazing fast by Western standards, but revolutionary for regions where 1 Mbps is considered luxury. The satellite uses Ka-band frequency, offering 50 gigabits per second of total capacity. That's enough to provide basic internet to roughly 5 million simultaneous users. The ground infrastructure includes 15 gateway stations and over 1,000 community access points powered by solar panels. But here's what's really interesting. The satellite includes military-grade encrypted channels. These create a secure communication network, linking scattered military bases, government facilities, and border checkpoints. Unlike terrestrial networks that can be cut by insurgents, this space-based system is virtually immune to ground-based attacks. The second satellite is designed for Earth observation and surveillance. With sub-meter resolution optical sensors and synthetic aperture radar, it can capture detailed images day or night through clouds and weather. The technical specifications are impressive: 0.5 meter resolution in panchromatic mode, 2 meter resolution in multispectral, and 3 meter resolution radar imaging. The satellite can revisit any location within the AES territory every 12 hours, providing near real-time monitoring capabilities. For border security, this means tracking vehicle movements across vast desert regions. For resource management, it means monitoring illegal gold mining operations in real time. For agriculture, it means precision farming data that could revolutionize food security. Niger's additional radar satellite adds another layer of capability. Synthetic aperture radar can penetrate sand and vegetation, revealing underground water sources, mineral deposits, and even buried infrastructure used by smuggling networks. The technology transfer component is equally important. Russian trainers are already working with local technicians in Ouagadougou, Bamako, and Niamey. The curriculum includes satellite operations, data analysis using Python programming, and maintenance of ground station equipment. Universities in all 3 countries are establishing space technology programs. This isn't just about operating Russian satellites. It's about building local space capabilities. The economic model is fascinating. Traditional satellite services require ongoing payments to foreign providers. This system, once operational, generates revenue through data sales to neighboring countries, reduced import costs for telecommunications, and improved efficiency in resource extraction and agriculture. Early projections suggest the satellites could pay for themselves within 7 years through improved border security, enhanced mining operations, and telecommunications revenue, assuming political stability and successful implementation. This satellite deal represents more than technology transfer. It's a geopolitical earthquake whose tremors are being felt from Paris to Washington. For 60 years, France maintained a neo-colonial system of political, economic, and military control over its former colonies. The Sahel was its crown jewel, rich in uranium for French nuclear plants and gold for French banks. The handover of the last French military base in Chad and the Sahel marks a loss of influence for Paris and European interests in the region. Operation Barkhane, France's counterterrorism mission, officially ended in November 2022 after 9 years and $8 billion in costs, with little to show for it except increased instability. The economic impact is staggering. French mining company Orano lost access to Niger's uranium mines, which provided 15% of France's nuclear fuel. Total trade between France and the 3 AES nations dropped 40% in 2023 alone. French development aid, once a tool of influence, is now largely irrelevant as these nations turn to alternative partners. The reduction of French military presence coincided with increasing Russian influence in the region. Following the withdrawal of French forces, the governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger strengthened their ties with Russia, accepting the deployment of Russian mercenaries to support their security needs. Russia's approach has been comprehensive and coordinated. While African Corps provides immediate security, Rosatom offers nuclear energy solutions, and now Glavcosmos delivers space capabilities. It's a full-spectrum alternative to Western engagement. The economic dimensions are significant. Russian investment in the region increased 300% between 2022 and 2024. Mining concessions previously held by French and Canadian companies are being renegotiated with Russian partners. The satellite deal is just one component of an estimated $2 billion investment package. Beijing is watching this development with keen interest and some concern. China's Belt and Road Initiative focused heavily on infrastructure, roads, ports, railways. Now Russia is claiming the high ground, literally, with space-based infrastructure. China operates its own satellite services across Africa through companies like China Great Wall Industry Corporation. The Russian success in the Sahel is prompting Beijing to accelerate its own space diplomacy efforts, particularly in East and Southern Africa. Washington's unexpected retreat from Niger was just the latest in the Great Western Exodus from the Sahel. The U.S. military withdrawal from Niger Air Base 201, a $100 million facility, symbolized America's strategic retreat from the region. U.S. officials are now scrambling to maintain influence through alternative means, supporting coastal West African nations like Ghana and Ivory Coast, increasing intelligence sharing with remaining partners, developing competing technological offerings. The ripple effects extend beyond great power competition. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is fracturing as the AES nations pursue increasingly independent policies. Nigeria, traditionally the region's hegemon, finds its influence waning as its northern neighbors look elsewhere for partnership. The broader implications are profound. The Sahel is a critical transit route for migration to Europe, a front line in the fight against jihadist terrorism, and a source of critical minerals for the global economy. Russia's growing influence in this strategic region creates new challenges for European security and energy policies. International responses have been muted, but telling. The European Union has imposed additional sanctions on AES military leaders but lacks leverage to change their behavior. The African Union remains divided, with some members supporting the AES's sovereignty claims, while others worry about democratic backsliding. Beyond the geopolitical chess game, this satellite project could fundamentally transform daily life for 72 million people across the Sahel. But will it deliver on its promises, or become another example of technological solutions failing to address human problems? Imagine a pregnant woman in rural Burkina Faso accessing prenatal care through telemedicine connections with doctors in Ouagadougou. Picture farmers in northern Mali receiving real-time weather data and crop recommendations through satellite internet. Envision students in Niger's remote regions accessing online education platforms for the first time. The connectivity gap is enormous. Currently, only 12% of the Sahel's rural population has internet access. The new satellite system aims to reach 80% coverage within 5 years. That's potentially 40 million people gaining internet access for the first time. Digital connectivity enables economic participation. Mobile banking services could reach unbanked populations. Currently, 70% of adults in the region lack formal financial services. Digital marketplaces could connect rural producers directly with urban consumers, eliminating exploitative middlemen. The Earth's observation capabilities offer unprecedented resource management opportunities. For security, the satellites offer genuine advantages. The ability to track vehicle movements across 5 million square kilometers of largely empty terrain could revolutionize counterterrorism efforts. Secure communications could finally link scattered military outposts into a coherent command structure. But the challenges are equally enormous. Satellite technology is complex and unforgiving. Equipment failures in harsh Sahelian conditions are common. Dust storms can damage solar panels powering ground stations. Technical expertise takes years to develop. The dependency risk is real. Russia will control critical components, software updates, and maintenance schedules for decades. If political relationships sour, Moscow could effectively shut down these systems remotely. Financial sustainability remains questionable. The $200 million initial cost could easily double if technical problems arise. Maintenance costs weren't fully disclosed in the initial agreements. These are among the world's poorest nations taking on massive technological commitments. The digital divide could actually worsen. Satellite internet will likely be concentrated in urban areas and government facilities. Rural populations might remain disconnected, while seeing resources diverted to high-tech projects. Elite capture of technological benefits is a common problem in development projects. Security vulnerabilities are concerning. Satellite systems are attractive targets for cyber attacks. State-sponsored hackers could potentially access sensitive surveillance data or disrupt communications during critical periods. The systems could become tools of oppression rather than development. Environmental impacts of ground station construction and increased electronic waste haven't been adequately assessed. Social disruption from rapid technological change could destabilize traditional communities and economic relationships. History offers mixed lessons. Nigeria's Nikamsat-1, launched in 2007, failed after just 18 months due to solar panel problems. South Africa's Sumbandalasset provided valuable Earth observation data, but struggled with funding and technical expertise. Egypt's Nilesat constellation has been more successful, but required decades of gradual capability building. The next 2 years are critical. Ground station construction must proceed on schedule. Technical training programs must produce competent operators. Most importantly, the satellites must actually launch successfully and perform as promised. Any significant delays or failures could undermine political support and public confidence. This Sahel satellite project could be just the beginning. Successful, it might inspire a continental transformation. The birth of African space capabilities that could reshape the continent's relationship with the world. The African Union's Agenda 2063 explicitly calls for space technology development as a tool for continental integration and development. Several African nations are already developing space programs. South Africa with its advanced Earth observation capabilities, Nigeria with its growing satellite constellation, and Egypt with its established space agency. Imagine a Pan-African satellite constellation providing continent-wide internet coverage, integrated weather monitoring, and coordinated resource management. The technology exists. The demand is enormous. What's been missing is the political will and financial resources. The AES project, if successful, could provide the proof of concept. Other African regional blocs might follow suit. The East African community could develop its own satellite system. The Southern African Development Community could coordinate its space ambitions. Africa's entry into space capabilities would add a new dimension to global competition. Currently, space technology is dominated by the US, Russia, China, and the European Union, an African space bloc. Even if technologically dependent initially, would represent a new center of influence. The economic potential is staggering. Africa contains 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land, 30% of global mineral reserves, and growing populations that will drive global growth for decades. Satellite technology could unlock this potential more efficiently than any previous technological revolution. Climate change adaptation could be revolutionized. Africa is the continent most vulnerable to climate change impacts. It has the least access to high-quality weather and environmental monitoring data. Indigenous satellite capabilities could change that equation fundamentally. The critical question is whether real technology transfer occurs. Too many development projects in Africa have created infrastructure without building capabilities. The difference between success and failure will be determined by whether Africans ultimately control these systems or merely operate them. The human capital exists. African universities are producing thousands of engineering and science graduates annually. What's needed is opportunity, investment, and most importantly, the political commitment to prioritize indigenous capabilities over short-term dependencies. Political instability remains the greatest threat. Military governments are inherently unstable if not fully committed to a transforming program about their own future. Regional conflicts could disrupt cross-border cooperation essential for continental integration. Financial sustainability requires developing revenue models beyond development aid. Satellite services must generate income through data sales, telecommunications services, and resource management improvements. This requires business models that don't yet exist in most African contexts. The AES satellite project represents both Africa's greatest space ambition and its biggest technological gamble. Success could inspire continental transformation. Failure could discourage similar initiatives for years. What's certain is that this project has already changed the geopolitical equation in West Africa. France's colonial influence is finished. Russia has established itself as a credible alternative to Western technological partnerships. And 3 of the world's poorest nations have demonstrated that. Sovereignty in the 21st century requires control of the high frontier. When the first satellites are launched, they'll carry more than just technology into orbit. They'll carry the hopes of 72 million people, the ambitions of 3 nations, and the future of Africa's relationship with space. The question isn't whether Africa belongs in space. The question is whether space technology will serve African development or create new forms of dependency. The SAL's satellite revolution is about to provide the answer. So, what do you think? Is this satellite project a genuine step toward African technological independence? Or just another form of dependency with a Russian accent? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to keep thinking the world how it really is.